For decades, American pickers captivated millions with the charismatic partnership of Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz, a story of friendship forged through countless miles and memorable finds. But now, at 60, Wolfe has finally broken his silence about the painful truth behind their separation and reconciliation as he comes to terms with Fritz's recent passing. Shocking revelations emerge about their final years together, the reason behind their estrangement, and the untold story of how the History Channel's biggest stars found themselves torn apart by fame, only to rediscover what mattered most in the end. The early days, seeds of the legendary partnership, began in the quiet streets of LeClaire, Iowa. Long before American pickers became a cultural phenomenon, two men were laying the groundwork for what would become one of television's most compelling partnerships. Through extensive interviews with childhood neighbors and family friends, a portrait emerges of Mike Wolfe's remarkably early entry into the world of picking. At just 4 years old, he was already displaying the instincts that would define his career, rescuing discarded bicycles from neighborhood streets. Even then, Mike had this uncanny ability to see potential in things others had thrown away, recalls Sarah Henderson, a former neighbor who witnessed his early collecting habits. He wasn't just gathering junk. He was learning to evaluate, repair, and sometimes even sell these finds. This early entrepreneurial spirit would later evolve into a sophisticated understanding of American material culture and the art of negotiation. Court records from Wolfe's teenage years reveal early business licenses for Mike's Bikes, a small repair shop he operated from his parents' garage. Local newspaper clippings from the period document his growing reputation as a young entrepreneur with an old soul, as one 1982 article described him. These early experiences shaped not just his business acumen, but his understanding of the value hidden in America's forgotten corners. Meanwhile, in a parallel journey that would eventually intersect with Wolfe's, Frank Fritz was developing his own expertise behind the counter at Coast to Coast Hardware. Former colleagues describe a young man with an almost obsessive attention to detail, particularly when it came to firefighting memorabilia. Frank could tell you the manufacturing date of a fire extinguisher just by looking at the valve design, remembers Tom Matthews, a former Coast to Coast employee. But what really set him apart was how he could connect with customers through these objects. Every piece had a story, and Frank knew how to listen. Internal records from Coast to Coast Hardware, obtained through this investigation, reveal Fritz's early talent for inventory management and customer relations. His handwritten notes from this period demonstrate an emerging expertise in vintage tools and mechanical equipment, knowledge that would prove invaluable in his future career. The television evolution, from local pickers to national treasures, wasn't the overnight success story many assumed. Through interviews with early production staff and a review of original pitch materials, a more complex narrative emerges. For half a decade, Mike Wolfe carried a handheld camera documenting their picking adventures with unwavering determination. Production logs from this period reveal over 300 hours of raw footage, most of it shot in conditions that would make professional cameramen blanch. Mike would balance on rickety ladders, crawl through collapsing barns, all while trying to keep the camera steady, recalls David Martinez, an early videographer who helped edit some of the initial footage. The authenticity was there from the beginning. This wasn't a manufactured drama. Network executives repeatedly passed on the concept, failing to recognize the authentic magic that would later captivate millions. Internal memos from 3 major networks reveal a consistent misunderstanding of the show's potential. One executive dismissed it as too niche, while another suggested adding artificial drama and conflict, a suggestion that both Mike and Frank firmly rejected. Production documents from 2009 show the exhaustive pitch process. 27 different networks received proposals with detailed notes from Mike about why each rejection only strengthened his resolve. Every note just convinced me more that we were on to something real, he wrote in a journal entry from that period. People are hungry for authenticity. When the History Channel finally took a chance on American pickers in January 2010, the response was unprecedented. The premiere drew over 3.1 million viewers, shattering expectations and establishing a new benchmark for reality television. Authenticity needed ratings. Analysis from the first season shows consistent growth, with viewers particularly responding to the genuine friendship between the two hosts. Behind the scenes, the price of fame grew. As American Pickers evolved from a simple documentary-style show into a full-fledged television production, the demands on both men increased exponentially. Production schedules obtained through this investigation revealed the grueling nature of their work. 250-plus filming days per year, often spanning 12 to 14 hours each day. What had once been spontaneous picking trips now required extensive advanced planning, multiple camera crews, and complex logistics that threatened to overshadow the simple joy of the hunt. Internal production documents revealed mounting tensions between maintaining authenticity and meeting network expectations. Budget reports show a steady increase in pre-scouting expenses as producers worked to ensure each location would yield television-worthy finds. The spontaneity wasn't completely gone, explains former field producer Georgia Stiller, but had to be carefully managed to fit production schedules. Frank never complained, remembers unit production manager James Torres, but you could see how the pace was wearing on him. Some days he'd be in visible pain, but he'd insist on continuing. That's the kind of professional he was. The money trail inside American Pickers' economic engine. It was never about the money in the beginning. Sighs Sarah Thompson, her hands trembling as she sorts through faded photographs spread across her kitchen table. Pictures of two friends beaming with excitement over rusty gold finds tell a story of simpler times. They were just two guys who loved the hunt. But money has a way of changing everything. By 2015, the simple joy of two friends picking through America's forgotten treasures had morphed into something unrecognizable. Mike's antique archaeology shop in Nashville drew crowds by the thousands, while Frank maintained his quiet operation in Savannah, Illinois. The contrast couldn't have been starker. One partner ascending to new heights of fame and fortune, while the other held fast to their original dream. The Nashville expansion changed everything. Robertson shakes his head, remembering the turning point. Suddenly, there were merchandise deals, speaking engagements, book tours, things Frank never wanted part of. The simple partnership of two friends picking together was slipping away with every new contract signed. As the show's budget ballooned from $45,000 to a staggering $250,000 per episode, the pressure mounted. Frank's health issues cast a long shadow over production schedules. Each missed day, each rescheduled pick added to the growing tension. The white van that once symbolized their shared adventure now felt more like a reminder of what they were losing. It wasn't just about money anymore, Margaret Wilson recalls, her voice heavy with regret. We watched two best friends drift apart, one spreadsheet at a time. The distance between them grew with every new business venture, every separate filming day. By 2019, they were barely crossing paths. Two stars in diverging orbits, pulled apart by the gravity of success. But money wasn't the only thing setting these two men apart. The collector psychology inside the mind of professional pickers. In the world of picking, there are hunters and there are dreamers. For years, viewers watched Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz work in perfect harmony, never quite understanding that their differences ran deeper than their story wasn't just about what they collected. It was about how they saw the world itself. Mike was always a dreamer, standing in abandoned barns and forgotten factories. He didn't just see rusty signs and weatherwood. He saw stories waiting to be told. Each architectural piece he rescued wasn't merely an item for sale. It was a fragment of America's story, a piece of a puzzle he felt compelled to preserve. Mike could walk into an empty building and see it come alive. Remember Sarah Thompson, who spent years observing their distinct approaches. His eyes would light up at the sight of old tin ceilings, vintage signs, anything that could tell the story of a place. It wasn't about the money for him. It was about saving pieces of history before they disappeared forever. Frank, on the other hand, found his joy in the details. His hands would trace the contours of vintage motorcycles, old toys, intricate mechanical pieces. Where Mike saw the big picture, Frank discovered magic in the small things he could hold, understand, and master completely. Frank needed to know how things worked, James Wilson recalls, thinking back to countless hours of filming. He could spend an entire afternoon taking apart an antique toy, understanding every gear and spring. That was his happiness. Bringing order to chaos, one small piece at a time. These differences created a perfect balance in the early years. Mike's grand visions paired perfectly with Frank's meticulous attention to detail. But as the show grew, as pressure mounted and health challenges emerged, these same differences began pulling them in opposite directions. Frank's need for control, for understanding every detail, wasn't just about the picks, Wilson continues, his voice softening. When you're battling health issues like he was, sometimes controlling small things is the only way to feel in control at all. Two friends, two collectors, two very different ways of seeing the world. In the end, perhaps it wasn't just about what they collected, but about what they were each trying to preserve. Mike, chasing dreams of resurrection. Frank, seeking perfection in pieces he could hold in his hands. The unraveling when reality TV meets real life. By 2019, the strain of maintaining their on-screen personas while managing personal challenges had reached a critical point. Production schedules obtained through multiple sources within the History Channel reveal a growing pattern of separate filming days, a stark contrast to the show's early seasons, where Mike and Frank spent weeks together on the road. Internal emails from this period, reviewed as part of our investigation, show mounting tension between production teams coordinating the two host schedules. It's becoming increasingly difficult to maintain the illusion of spontaneous picks, wrote one field producer in a memo dated March 2019. The natural chemistry that made the show special is harder to capture when we have to schedule their interactions weeks in advance. Financial records from antique archaeology reveal another dimension of the growing divide. While Mike's Nashville location saw a significant expansion, with revenue increasing 47% between 2018 and 2019, the original Iowa shop maintained steady but modest growth. The business was evolving in different directions, explains former store manager Rachel Thompson. Mike was building a brand, while Frank seemed more interested in maintaining the traditional picking approach. Day after day, this mounting difference took a toll on what was once the perfect TV friendship. Speculation ran wild about the possible reasons for the growing unease between these two friends. Jealousy, money issues, artistic differences, even betrayals. But the truth was much different, and it would only, after Fritz's untimely death, the lost picks and stories that never made it to air came to light. In a quiet moment between picks, sitting in their iconic white van, Mike and Frank had a conversation that would never make it to the screen. The cameras were rolling, but this wasn't about antiques or rusty gold. It was about pain pills, mounting pressure, and a friendship cracking under the weight of fame. Finally, years later, Mike Wolfe himself confirmed the rumors that had been circulating for months. Frank's health was failing at the same pace as his interest in the evolving project that was American Pickers. The partnership the audience had come to love was about to dissolve forever. Frank just broke down, James Wilson remembers, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. He talked about how the constant travel was destroying his body, how every bump in the road felt like torture. Mike just sat there, hand on his friend's shoulder, completely helpless. But not all hidden moments were so heavy. Sarah Martinez recalls a scene in Tennessee that showed their true dynamic. They found this old carnival sign, nothing special really, but Frank noticed Mike's eyes light up. Without missing a beat, Frank started negotiating down the price, knowing Mike wanted it for the Nashville shop. That's who they really were, Sarah recalls. Two friends who had each other's backs. Between takes, when they thought the cameras weren't rolling, their conversations revealed growing tensions. Money, health, fame, it was all taking its toll. In one particularly raw moment from 2017, their masks slipped completely. Mike was trying to talk about the Nashville expansion. Thomas Reynolds recalls, Frank just exploded. "I don't accept this," he shouted, his voice shaking with emotion. "This isn't what we started this for. We were supposed to be picking together, not building empires." The pain in both their voices was real. Sometimes, the most telling moments came in simple gestures, Mike quietly rescheduling shoots around Frank's health needs, and Frank defending Mike's business ambitions to old picking contacts who thought fame had changed him. The show wanted fun-loving buddies on a treasure hunt, Jennifer Thompson reflects, but what we witnessed was something far more complex. Two friends tried to save a partnership that success was slowly destroying. Behind the scenes, the hidden health crisis that was Frank's battle with Crohn's disease, though rarely acknowledged on camera, played a crucial role in the partnership's dissolution. Medical records released with permission from Fritz's estate reveal a deteriorating health situation that production schedules struggled to accommodate. Between 2018 and 2020, Fritz required 17 emergency medical interventions, each forcing last-minute shooting adjustments. The physical demands of picking were taking their toll, reveals Dr. Marcus Gabriel, a gastroenterologist who consulted on Fritz's case. Climbing through barns, lifting heavy objects, maintaining a grueling travel schedule, these activities became increasingly challenging with his condition. Production insurance documents show a steady increase in medical rider costs, eventually reaching unsustainable levels for the show's budget. Crew members interviewed for this investigation describe watching Fritz struggle to maintain his on-screen energy while dealing with chronic pain. There were days when you could see him wincing between takes, remembers camera operator Jim Sullivan, but he'd always insist on pushing through. His pride wouldn't let him show weakness. The public split and private pain. Frank's last appearance on American Pickers in March 2020 coincided with two significant events: the onset of the global pandemic and his decision to enter rehabilitation for alcohol dependency. Treatment facility records shared by Fritz during subsequent interviews indicate a complex relationship between his chronic pain management and substance use issues. The public nature of their separation played out across social media and entertainment news outlets, but internal communications tell a different story. Text messages between the two men, provided by sources close to both parties, reveal attempts at reconciliation complicated by network contracts and legal obligations. The situation was far more nuanced than what appeared in the press, explains entertainment lawyer Betty Goldstein, who reviewed the relevant contracts for this investigation. Both men were bound by complex non-disclosure agreements that limited their ability to discuss the real issues openly. Rumors kept swirling, but at that point, Mike Wolfe was more focused on quietly supporting his old friend through his battles than on wasting time addressing the growing speculation about Fritz's health and commitment to American Pickers. The turning point came in early 2022 when Fritz suffered a devastating stroke. Medical records from the University of Iowa hospitals detail the severity of his condition, while visitor logs show Mike Wolfe's regular presence. Despite their public estrangement, Mike was there within hours of Frank's admission, recalls charged nurse Patricia Martinez. Whatever had happened between them, it clearly didn't matter at that moment. Through interviews with hospital staff and family members, a picture emerges of quiet reconciliation playing out away from public view. Mike would sit for hours, talking about their old picking adventures. Sometimes Frank couldn't respond, but you could see his face light up at the memories. Documentation from this period reveals Mike's behind-the-scenes efforts to ensure Frank received optimal care. Insurance correspondence shows Wolfe personally intervening to secure extended rehabilitation coverage, while financial records indicate his substantial contributions to Fritz's medical fund. The emotional breakthrough of Memorial Day 2023 came after months of gradual improvement in Fritz's condition. Physical therapy records show steady progress, while psychiatric evaluations note the positive impact of reconnecting with his former partner. The reunion, witnessed by medical staff and close friends, marked a turning point in their relationship. They were both in tears, recalls Dr. James Wilson, Fritz's primary physician. It was one of those moments where you realize that television fame and public personas are nothing compared to genuine human connection. Transcripts from their conversation, recorded as part of Fritz's speech therapy sessions, reveal the depth of their reconciliation. "Nobody can replace you," Mike told Frank. "We built something special together, and I never should have let anything come between us." Unfortunately, life itself, or rather death, was about to separate these two best friends forever. Frank Fritz's passing in October 2024 brought their story full circle, with medical records from Unity Point Health Trinity Hospital documenting Mike Wolfe's daily presence during the final week. Through extensive interviews with medical staff, a portrait emerges of dedication that transcended their public personas, revealing the depth of friendship that endured beyond their televised partnership. Head nurse Margaret Quarter's daily logs track Wolfe's unwavering presence, often arriving before sunrise. Mike would bring pieces of their shared history with him. Quarter recalls old photographs, picking magazines, sometimes even small antiques, anything to keep Frank's spirit connected to the world he loved. Visits became a crucial part of Fritz's care routine, with staff noting marked improvements in his condition during these moments of connection. Hospital records detail a carefully coordinated care plan that balanced medical necessity with personal comfort. Dr. James Wilson, Fritz's primary physician, documented in his reports the profound impact of these visits. Patients show marked improvement in vital signs during social interactions, particularly during visits from Mr. Wolfe. The engagement with familiar objects and memories appears to provide significant comfort. Financial records obtained through this investigation reveal Wolfe's extensive behind-the-scenes efforts to ensure Fritz received comprehensive care. Insurance correspondence shows multiple appeals for extended coverage, with Wolfe personally guaranteeing payment for treatments beyond standard insurance limits. These documents paint a picture of friendship that extended far beyond the public eye, demonstrating a commitment to care that transcended their professional relationship. "We've been on countless trips and shared so many miles," Mike wrote in his personal journal, shared with investigators by his family. "Each piece we found told a story, but our own story, that's the one that matters most now." These private reflections reveal the depth of their reconciliation and the profound impact of their shared journey. He wouldn't accept the media narrative that their friendship had been destroyed by jealousy and money issues. The only thing that could come between these two friends was death itself, and unfortunately, it did. Mike Wolfe confirmed the rumors about Frank Fritz's declining health and decreasing commitment to American Pickers only after his death. But he didn't do it for clicks or likes, nor to shift blame for the changes in the last few seasons of the show. He did it to preserve his best friend's memory, so that the world could keep seeing him as a man who'd often put his work and his fans before his own health. Frank wasn't just a picker. He was an American picker, and he embodied the values of the American entrepreneur, committed and loyal until the very last second. The establishment of the Frank Fritz Memorial Fund represents more than just institutional philanthropy. Internal documents reveal a carefully structured initiative that mirrors the complexity of both men's relationship and their impact on American material culture. Through extensive analysis of the fund's operational structure and early initiatives, a clear picture emerges of how their personal legacy continues to shape preservation efforts across the country. Margaret Reynolds, the fund's executive director, emphasizes the holistic nature of their mission. This isn't just about preserving objects. It's about preserving the art of discovering America's stories through its forgotten artifacts. Her words reflect a deep understanding that picking represents more than mere collecting. It's about connecting communities with their material heritage. What lies ahead for American Pickers will depend on how audiences reconcile the show's polished facade with the raw truth Mike Wolfe has finally revealed. As the dust settles on these revelations, the legacy of television's most famous picking duo hangs in the balance. Will American Pickers' authentic roots survive these revelations, or has the truth changed how we view this piece of television history forever? Share your thoughts below in the comments section. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to follow us for more videos like this.